Have you ever woken up in the morning and immediately felt tired? Before you've even had a sip of coffee, your mind is already filled with worries, unanswered emails, unfinished work, or even yesterday's mistake. It feels like you haven't even gotten out of bed before you're caught in a never-ending storm. I remember a time when waking up every morning was a battle. The phone rang, the news came in, and I let the world define my mood before I even looked up. The result? Days filled with stress, exhaustion, and emptiness. But then I realized, not every morning has to be like this. There is another way to start the day, one that starts with peace, strength, and hope. In today's video, I want to share with you 7 morning Bible verses that can completely change the way you approach your day. Each verse is not just a promise, but a practical tool to help you deal with anxiety, fatigue, and even invisible fears. And I believe that, just by taking a few minutes to reflect together, you will realize that the morning can become the most sacred moment of the whole day. Now, we will start with a surprising truth. Why did God choose the morning as the time to bestow new graces on people? Do you realize that the morning is like a switch that starts the whole day? Just start it wrong, and everything else can easily go wrong. Science also proves that cortisol levels, the stress hormone, are often highest in the morning. Therefore, if we start the day with a flood of text messages, work emails, or scrolling through social networks, the brain immediately falls into a state of stress. I remember a time when I had this habit. I would reach for my phone as soon as I opened my eyes, and within minutes, a barrage of news and work pressure would come rushing in. Before I had time to eat breakfast, I felt like my day was set, tired, reacting to circumstances instead of taking initiative. But then I came across an interesting study. The average American checks their phone 80 times a day, and most of that happens first thing in the morning. No wonder many people feel exhausted before they even start work. This got me wondering, have I been giving control of my morning mood to things outside my control? The lesson I learned is, the morning is not just a beginning, but a golden opportunity to lay the foundation for the whole day. If we start with anxiety, the whole day will be dragged down. But if we start with peace and God's Word, the mind will have a solid foundation to withstand any headwind. And it is here that the Bible opens with a beautiful promise. Every morning is a new gift, a fresh start. Let's explore the first verse now, where God promises to give you a spiritual reset button for your soul, so that today is not bound by yesterday. There is something beautiful in this. God does not give love just once, but He renews it every morning. Every time the sun rises, you are given a new opportunity, a divine reset button just for you. Imagine you've ended a day full of failures, words that hurt a loved one, work that didn't turn out as expected, worries filling your heart. And then you go to bed feeling weighed down. But as the morning dawns, the Bible reminds you, yesterday is gone, and today is a new beginning. You don't have to carry the same burdens into the new day. I remember one time, after a heated argument with a coworker, I was tossing and turning all night. The next morning, as I opened my Bible, I happened to read Lamentations 3:22-23. The words came to me like a breath of fresh air. His mercies are new every morning. I realized that I had the power to start over, to apologize, to forgive, and to move forward with a lighter heart. The lesson here is, every day is a new gift from God, unfettered by the past. You don't have to let yesterday's sins or tomorrow's fears define today. All you have to do is stop, take a deep breath and silently remind yourself, today, He has shown mercy to me again. And from this place, with our hearts renewed, we can take an important step forward, not only to receive mercy, but also to seek guidance for the day ahead. And that is what the next verse will show us. There is something interesting about this verse. The author begins the morning not with a personal plan, but with a prayer to hear God's love and be guided by Him. It is a perfect prayer to start the day. You can think of it like installing a GPS for your soul. If you choose your own direction, it's easy to get lost. But if you say at the beginning of the day, Lord, I give this day to you, show me the way I should go, then you are letting your loving Father guide you along the safest route. I remember a businessman friend in the U.S. once shared with me, every morning before opening his laptop, he always spends a few minutes reading Psalm 143:8. He said that once, when faced with an important business decision, all analysis led to the safe direction. But during his morning prayer, he felt God urging him to go in a different direction. As a result, that direction brought about an unexpected breakthrough. He laughed and said, "If I hadn't given the plan to God that morning, I would still be stuck in the same place." The lesson here is this: mornings are not just about beginning. They are about surrender. When you surrender your day to God, you no longer have to wrestle with big and small decisions alone. You are declaring, I don't want to drive myself. I want you to be my guide. And from here we move to an even more important foundation. For to truly surrender control to God requires a total attitude, complete trust, not reliance on our own limited understanding. That is also the teaching of the next verse. This is one of the most familiar verses in the Bible, but also one of the most challenging to live by. We are told to trust God with all our hearts and not to rely on our own limited understanding. It sounds simple, but it goes against human instinct, especially in a culture that values do-it-yourself, like America. It's easy to say, "Yes, God, I trust you." But at the same time, we still want to keep a tight grip on the wheel, still calculate, worry, and plan to make sure everything goes our way. And when things don't go the way we expect, we get confused, even doubt God. I remember a college student who told me that she had been struggling for months to decide on a major. She had done a pro-con analysis, compared salaries, career prospects, but still felt anxious. Finally, in a small group meeting, she was reminded of Proverbs 3:5-6. She decided to pray a simple prayer. Lord, I don't know which path is best, but I give it to you. A few weeks later, an unexpected door opened. A scholarship in a major she had never considered, but which would later become her lifelong passion. The lesson is this: trusting God means letting go of the need to always understand everything. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to know one thing. The one who leads you is faithful. When you surrender every area to Him, from your job to your finances to your relationships, you're putting yourself on the straight path He has prepared. And here's the key point. When we learn to surrender, God not only straightens our path, He also gives us the strength to walk steadily. Which brings us to another hopeful promise, a promise of renewed strength for weary souls. You've probably woken up feeling tired many times, even though you had a good night's sleep. Tiredness doesn't just come from the body, but more deeply, it comes from a soul that is burdened with too many worries. Work, bills, family responsibilities, all of them seem to drain our energy. But Isaiah writes that those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. This is not just a temporary energy boost, like a cup of coffee in the morning. It is a divine exchange, God takes our weariness and replaces it with His strength. I once heard the story of a young mother who had to take care of her young child and work full-time. There were mornings when she felt so exhausted that all she wanted to do was stay in bed. But she said that every time she read Isaiah 40:31 and said a simple prayer, "Lord, I am weak, strengthen me," she found the strength to get through the day. Not because the work was easier, but because she had new strength to face it. The imagery Isaiah uses is also beautiful. Soar on wings like eagles. Eagles don't fight the wind. They use it to soar higher. When you put your hope in God, He turns adversity into a force that lifts you up. Run and not grow weary. In seasons when you have to run at full speed, God gives you endurance so you don't fall. Walk and not be faint. In the days that seem ordinary and repetitive, He still gives you enough strength to persevere in walking each day. The lesson is this: putting your hope in God is not a passive wait, but an active choice, letting Him empower you every day. When you rely on Him, weariness is no longer an end, but an opportunity to see His supernatural power at work. And once we have the strength to stand firm, the next question is, but how do we keep our peace when fear and anxiety suddenly strike? The answer comes from another biblical image, that God is a shield over our hearts. Perhaps one of the emotions that creeps in most easily in the morning is fear. We fear the unknown, fear of failure, fear of facing challenges at work, or even fear that unexpected text or call could change our entire day. David, the psalmist, experienced many dangers, lurking enemies, unequal battles, but he made a powerful statement. God is not only a strength, He is also a shield. Imagine a shield on the battlefield. It doesn't keep the arrows away, but it stands between the soldier and danger. When you say, "God is my shield," you are reminding yourself that every arrow of worry, criticism, or adversity must pass through God before it can reach you. I remember a friend who shared that during the economic crisis. He woke up every morning with the fear of losing his job. Instead of letting fear take over his mind, he began to read and pray Psalm 28:7. He said, "I didn't know what the future held, but when I reminded myself that God was my shield, a strange peace came over me, and joy returned." The lesson here is this: fear may come, but it need not stay. When you choose to put your trust in God, He not only strengthens you, but He protects you. And that protection does not lead to anxiety, but to an explosion of joy in your soul, joy enough to turn fear into praise. And then, after fear, there is another enemy that often visits in the darkness: sadness. The night drags on. Tears fall on the pillow. We wonder if the light will ever return. But the Bible has a sweet promise. Weeping may last through the night, but joy comes with the morning. And that is what we will explore next. The dark of night often makes sadness feel heavier. When everything is quiet, our minds gnaw at worries, and the disappointments and losses echo more clearly than ever. How many times have you lain in bed, eyes watering from tears, wondering if you can take any more? Psalm 35 acknowledges that truth. Tears are real and can last all night. But at the same time, it also affirms a beautiful promise. Joy will surely come in the morning. Not a maybe, not a who knows, but a certainty, like the sun rising every day. In the Bible, we see the story of Joseph. He spent years in prison, forgotten, misunderstood. His night was long, but then one morning, he was called out of prison, and within hours, God made him the prime minister of Egypt. Tears passed through the night. Joy came in the morning. And so it is in today's life. I once knew a woman who lost her job in the middle of the recession. For months she tossed and turned, crying silently at night because she didn't know what the future would hold. But she still believed in this promise. And sure enough, a new opportunity opened up, not only better financially, but also a meaningful job. The lesson is this: sadness has its place, but it doesn't have the final say. When you put your trust in God, you can hold both tears and hope, because you know the dawn will surely come. And when that joy returns, it not only fills your heart, but it overflows, becoming a hope and blessing to others. That is the message of the next verse, where God is called the God of hope, the one who fills your life with joy, peace, and hope to spread to the world. It's amazing that the Bible calls God the God of hope. Not only is hope something He gives, but He is the source of it. And what's even more interesting, He doesn't want you to have just enough. He wants you to be full, so full of joy, peace, and hope that it flows out to touch others. Just imagine, if your inner tank was filled every morning, you would not only have enough energy to get through the day, but you would also be a source of encouragement to your family, co-workers, and everyone you meet. I remember a brother in my church telling me that he prayed this verse every morning before going to work. One day, a co-worker was going through a family crisis, and just a gentle word of encouragement, a peaceful presence from him, made him cry and say, "I feel so empowered." He smiled and realized he was just the overflowing cup, and the source of hope was the Holy Spirit. The little lesson here is, mornings are not just for receiving, but also for giving. When you are filled with joy and peace, you naturally spread hope to others. That turns an ordinary day into a day of eternal significance. Here's a daily activation for you. Every morning, pick one of the 7 verses we studied together, read it aloud, and turn it into a personal prayer. Then, find someone to share it with. Whether it's a text message of encouragement, a short prayer for a friend, or simply a hopeful smile as you walk out the door. When you practice this, you will see your morning not only shapes your mood, but also shapes the world around you. And that's when we come back to the big picture, recalling our journey through the 7 morning verses. Let's summarize and pray together to step out, ready to live fully in the new day with strength and hope from God.